All right. Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. I'm your host, Adam Patrick. I'm the editor and lead writer for thevikingage.com. And as always, I'm joined by Chris Schad, who writes for us here at the Viking Age, as well as Zone Coverage and Bring Me the News. Before we start today's show, make sure to, if you are watching on YouTube, to like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you already are subscribing, we thank you greatly. Also, make sure to follow the Viking Age on Twitter and Facebook. Okay, today we're going to do things a little differently since Vikings minicamp is now over, and we won't really hear anything about the team until they return for training camp at the end of July. So we're going to take the next few weeks to take a few episodes to kind of look back at some of the most memorable games in Vikings history. So the Ringer has this podcast called Rewatchables, where they do deep dives into old movies, sometimes recent movies as well. So we're going to do something similar, but with a Vikings twist. So these episodes will be known as Vikings Rewatchables, and we will be looking back at some of the best games in Vikings history. We're not only going to remind you of everything that happened in these games, but we're going to try and share some new information with you as well. So for the first episode, there wasn't really any other game that we could choose other than the Vikings win over the Saints in the divisional round of the 2017 playoffs, also known as the Minneapolis Miracle. So before we get started, though, with everything that we're doing, Chris, you were at this game. So, what do you remember about your experience in that stadium, in the stadium that day?
Well, in the stadium, I mean, the experience goes back to like 7 a.m. because that's when I got there to get ready for the game. I mean, it was intense. The whole week I was thinking, okay, how can I be as rowdy? Because I mean, it's like a big party, especially for a playoff game. I had never been to a divisional playoff game. I had been to the 2015 NFC wildcard game, which involved Blair Walsh shanking one into the Mississippi River in sub-zero temperatures.
Yep.
But it was very cold. And like the thing is, like, I don't think people know this, but this game could have been even more epic if the Vikings had an outdoor stadium. I mean, I love US Bank Stadium. Don't get me wrong. It's an awesome place to watch a game, but it was like negative temperatures again. Maybe it was +6 or something, but it was snowing like crazy out there. Like it was just snowing like mad, and you could see it on the broadcast. So, just going into the game, you felt like this kind of intense vibe where, I mean, all the pressure was on. Obviously, the Vikings were playing for a home Super Bowl. Everybody was going in. Everybody was fired up. School chants were breaking out everywhere because at that point it had just been 2 years old. And it was just fun. I mean, up until the final whistle, like, and I'm sure we'll get to it at some point, but I mean, when Diggs caught that pass and ran into the end zone, I mean, there are a lot of people who left. And I mean, I
I
thought
was
the
going to
game was
ask you
over
that.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going
mean,
to ask you if you saw people leaving during
yeah.
the final drive.
Yeah. People were headed towards the exits, and I can't say I blame them. I remember the last thing I remember before Diggs went, and it wasn't because I was drunk or anything. I mean, yeah, I was drunk, but I wasn't that drunk. But I blacked out after the Remmers thing. And the next thing I remember was Diggs just running by himself down the sideline. I'm like, what? What is going on? But yeah, I mean, it will honestly go down as the happiest day of my life. I'm convinced. I do not have a wife. I do not have kids. I do not expect the Vikings to win a Super Bowl. There is no way I could go to a game with a better ending, I think, unless it was an actual Super Bowl where the Vikings won. So, yeah, I would consider it the happiest day of my life
I'm trying
because
to th- I'm
it
trying
was
to
it was just awesome.
I'm trying to think of what other sports, even just other sports, could have the same kind of atmosphere. It'd have to be like, a game-winning goal in overtime in a hockey game,
Mhm. Yeah,
a
we don't do
buzzer
that in Minnesota either.
a
We just
buzzer
get our ass
beater.
kicked in the first round.
I feel like a buzzer beater in college basketball would be more exciting than in
Yeah,
the
no,
NBA.
don't do that either.
Um,
Keep
walk
going.
off walk off home runs in
Okay,
baseball.
Kirby Puckett did that. You at
Yeah.
least got one.
Long time ago, though.
Oh,
That was
okay.
like, what, 30 years ago,
Yeah,
35
I
years
wasn't
ago?
paying attention. I was watching Rugrats or something.
Yeah. I
So,
think they won 1987, I think.
and 91.
Yeah,
91's the greatest World Series of all time.
I think I was born 3 or 4 months before that 87
Yeah.
win. So, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
long time ago. All right. So let's just real quick before we get into some more detailed stuff, a quick summary of this game. So the Vikings were the number 2 seed in the NFC this year in 2017, and the Saints were the number 4 seed. Minnesota was favored by 5.5 points heading into this matchup. And the Saints were coming off a 31-26 win over the Carolina Panthers in the wild card round of the playoffs the week before. So the Vikings got off to a blazing fast start. They scored points on 3 of their first 4 offensive drives, and they entered the half with a 17-0 lead over the Saints. But then the Saints clearly made some adjustments, came out in the second half and scored 21 unanswered points to go up 21-20 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Actually, I don't think those were unanswered because I think Kai Forbath made it 20-14. So it wasn't
Yep.
unanswered, but still they scored 21 points within like the third quarter and a bit of the fourth quarter. So, Minnesota and New Orleans then traded field goals after that, and the Vikings got the ball back one final time, 25 seconds to go. So trailing the Saints 24-23. The Vikings only managed to gain 19 yards on their first 3 plays of this drive on their own 39-yard line. Minnesota just wanted to find a way to get into field goal range so that Kai Forbath could attempt a game-winning field goal. Instead, Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs had other plans. Case Keenum threw a pass to the right sideline. Stephon Diggs, who then ran untouched into the end zone for a miraculous game-winning touchdown. It's a moment that no Vikings fan will ever forget. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, what was your most rewatchable moment from this game? I think the answer is probably obvious, but I just want to, ask you to confirm.
Okay, so I took 2 routes here because obviously it's the Minneapolis Miracle.
Mhm.
Like I have never watched the broadcast of this game until I watched it last night. So this
Wow.
was all new territory for me.
Wow.
But the highlight, I have watched that hundreds, maybe 1,000 times, just because it's such an awesome play. And I mean, this is gonna sound so lame, but if I'm ever having a bad day and I just think about that play, I'll just flip it on because everything in that moment is so awesome on the broadcast. Because you see Diggs catch the ball, and like if I were watching it at home, like it would have been like, okay, where the hell is everyone? Like Marcus Williams basically did the Madden hit stick. Like if you're bad in NCAA 14 and you're trying to sack the quarterback, you can just go flying past him. That's what Marcus Williams did. And it was just shocking. Nobody was there. Like I said, like this is what happened. I will go back into where I was at that moment because I was
where were your seats? Well, like just what angle of the stadium were they?
I was standing in a little perch.
Okay.
I don't actually sit in seats when I go. My friend has some tickets kind of in the lower level, so I
Okay.
stand above his seats.
Okay.
And like that's what I like about US Bank Stadium. There's little areas that you can stand and watch the game.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there watching the game. And like I said, they had the ball probably right across from us when they started that final drive. I think 25, 30 or whatever it was. And Mike Remmers had a false start. And black. And it wasn't because I've been drinking. I had plenty to drink, but I was just angry. I was frustrated. I was mad. Like going back like a couple of minutes before that happened, like I said, I was at the Blair Walsh game. And I remember when Walsh was setting up for the game-winning field goal, I'm just like, okay, this is like your chance to rage. There's like 27 seconds or whatever. They're going to try and drive down the field, get game-winning score, whatever. And I saw the kick. And, I thought it went through. So like I was getting ready and my buddy just grabs me. He goes, he missed. And I'll save the rest for later. But I was so disappointed that I felt like I was robbed because I didn't have a chance to help win the game, even though I'm not on the team. Like, but I mean, as a fan in that stadium, you want a chance to like try and make an impact on that final drive. You want to scream, you want to do everything. So when Kai Forbath banged in that 52-yard field goal, I'm like, this is it. This is your chance. I screamed so loud, I was physically sore the next 2 or 3 days. I was like Ryan Saunders screaming at Andrew Wiggins, like just screaming. And like the Saints wound up getting that game winning or the go ahead field goal. And like I wanted to cry. Like at this point, I wasn't writing for anybody. So there was no like professional things. This is just me being fan Chris. So like I was so mad because the season was so awesome. It was a special season. It was so much fun to watch this team, and this team was so damn likable. Which is, fast forward to last season, it's night and day. So like I was just pissed because I wanted to see the Vikings go to the Super Bowl. And when Remmers had that false start, I just remembered like just staring into oblivion. Like I can't believe they blew a 17-point lead. I can't believe all that. And the next thing I remember, Diggs is just running down the sideline all the way into the end zone. And I thought, you go through a mental checklist as a fan. And at first you just go, okay, like he stepped out of bounds. He didn't catch that. There's no why isn't anybody chasing him? That's what I remember thinking. Why didn't anybody chase him? And I'm like, okay, nobody's like waving incomplete. Everybody's still cheering. And I'm like, okay, like he stepped out. He caught it and he stepped out of bounds. Like that didn't happen either. I'm like, okay, where's the flag? Like I'm looking everywhere for yellow, and like all of a sudden, 2 guys I had never met before in my life just grabbed me by the shoulders and started shaking me. And I said stuff that I cannot repeat on air. It starts with an F, and I said it multiple times. So like my friend who is like over this barricade, I jumped, and he described it as a Roman Reigns spear onto the ground, just tackling him and shaking him, screaming, what, WTF, WTF, WTF. And like, I just get goosebumps thinking about it.
Euphoria.
I get goosebumps watching reaction videos. There's like 70 different angles and perspectives that you can have of this one play. And it's one of the greatest plays in NFL history because of that, because it's a new age play. Like Music City Miracle, like you just have the broadcast view and anybody that was at the game. This play, like you could see how Saints fans react in the bar where they're just oh my God. You can watch Vikings fans. My mom, the most diehard Viking fan I know, chugs Fireball, Breeze Purple. Bleeds, not Breeze. I don't know. She probably Breeze Purple too. I don't know. But she took her jersey off and went downstairs. She's like, guess I'm going to hang it up for next season. And my dad, who's like on the opposite end of the spectrum, was just watching the game and he started screaming. And my mom's like, what are you screaming about? And like, they just
So she missed it?
Yeah, she missed the play. She was down in the basement hanging up her Diggs jersey, which even makes it funnier because that's her jersey. So like she's hanging up her Stephon Diggs jersey. My dad's like, yeah, Diggs just scored. And like my mom's like, no way, like went up and like I called my mom in the stadium like, we scored, and like screaming. And that was like the last bit of my phone. She's like, are you alive? Are you,
Who cares? They won.
It was so much fun. I know I kind of went on a rant there, but that's what it was like to be in the stadium and then to go and see all the different reactions of it. It is honestly the coolest play that I can remember as far as NFL football goes. And I might be a little bit biased, but I mean, it was just so cool to be a part of that moment.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't, I think the thing that makes it even more special is that it doesn't happen to Vikings fans. Like, this doesn't happen to the Vikings. Like, this doesn't happen.
Okay, so when I was shaking my friend on the ground, that's all he could spit out.
Yeah.
As I'm shaking him, he's going, this doesn't happen to us. What?
And so, you're thinking like, oh, so Zimmer comes along, it's a new era or whatever, and they're going to do this all the time now. Sadly, that did not happen. But yeah, so like in the past, it was like 20, 30 yards, 25 yards in the air. It wasn't that long. So
no,
if he went, which makes me like thinking about it, why didn't the Saints have someone like on their, like, or 2 or 3 people on their 20-yard line? Like what? I know maybe they were trying to play to keep them out of field goal range, but you should still have somebody that's like way back deep there in case something like this happens, and they didn't. So
Well, that's why you play man up 3 deep in NCAA 14. You have 3 guys standing back there, and in case somebody burns the defense. But I think
everyone
Marcus
play
Williams,
like
yeah,
Cameron Dantzler against the Lions. Okay,
Marcus, this is an acceptable moment where you can play 20 yards off
correct.
the play,
And the funny
not
thing
when
is,
you're right at the goal line.
yeah, the
But
funny
yeah,
thing is Marcus Williams, the rookie safety who's famous for this for whiffing. Um, he had a pick earlier in the game that he had the
mhm,
Keenum pick where Keenum just chucked it up, and he's the one who got that ball, and so he was probably like in this game he was riding high, like I'm a big major part of this game for the right reasons,
yeah.
um, and then this just totally turned everything around. The play call was named Buffalo Right 7 Heaven. I'm sure many Vikings fans already know that. Went down as a 61-yard pass from Keenum to Diggs. I believe Diggs he had the other catch too on that drive, which was like 19 yards. So he had uh, the all of the entire 80 yards that the Vikings drove because they had to move back 5 yards because of that Remmers false start that you mentioned. Mike Remmers
Mhm.
starting at left guard for the first time, I believe, in his career. They picked a playoff game for him to do that, which just is part of the musical chairs that the Vikings offensive line has done in the last decade. Um, so now that you've seen you said you've watched the highlights, so you've obviously heard the Joe Buck call many times, but
Mhm.
there's other calls. But what's the best play-by-play call of the game? Is it Bucks or is it PAs or is it something else?
I would say Bucks call. I like Bucks more than Paul Allen's.
Yeah,
It's because Pete Bursich, not his fault, because it was
he's just
everybody's
freaking out.
reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was just screaming and stomping all over the call, but it's not. I mean, it's not his fault. I
right.
like being a broadcaster. I mean, I probably would have screamed too if I were on the call. Buck gets a negative reputation among
Yeah.
Viking fans,
Oh yeah.
mainly because of
Good
the
read.
Randy Moss call, right? And there are times too where like Joe Buck's on there, it's like, all right, dude, yeah, we get it. You like Aaron Rodgers, like we
Yeah.
know, guy.
Yeah.
But like that play, just simple. It was totally simple, and it let the moment breathe
Mhm.
because he just screamed Diggs sideline touchdown. It was probably all he could like get out because
Yeah.
he was just like it was just such a surreal play where he's just like, oh my god, he's gonna score.
Yep.
So I mean, I like that. From a broadcast standpoint, there are a lot of kind of interesting things that I picked up on throughout the broadcast. One of them was talking about Case Keenum and Troy Aikman saying he's got a little bit of Brett Favre to him.
Yeah, he
And
did say that.
like the funny thing about this game is Keenum had such a crazy season in relief of Sam Bradford. But at halftime of that game, when they were up 17-0, Kai Forbath misses the field goal right before
Mhm.
time. That's when the clock struck midnight on Case Keenum
Yep.
because he was making a couple of crazy throws in the first half. But once you got into the second half, the Saints were taking advantage. Marcus Williams had that interception. He was just
Block
inaccurate.
punt.
Yeah, I mean, the throw to, you had the block punt. The throw to Adam Thielen was like 10 feet above his head, and somehow Thielen caught it to set up
Oh yeah.
the
Yep.
game, the go-ahead field goal by Kai
Yep.
Forbath
Yep. Yep.
before the Saints took the lead.
Yep.
So it's just interesting to hear the play-by-play announcers talk about the team, especially 5 years later, because I don't go back and rewatch a lot of games, and it
Right.
reminds you what the culture of the team was like. And the other thing that kind of pointed out was they framed Zimmer as, hey, this guy's been a lifer. This is his moment. This is the best team he's ever had.
Yep.
He's lost how many playoff games as a coordinator or head coach? They
10
mentioned
straight
that.
going into that game. 10
Yeah,
straight.
and you watched Zimmer, and his demeanor was just totally different than it was, say, last season.
Yeah.
He's talking
Super
to his
focused.
quarterback. Yeah. He never. So, like last year, watching Zimmer, he always had this look like, "Oh my God, it's happening again."
He knew he
But
was getting
like,
fired. He knew he was getting fired.
yeah, and I mean, in 2017, there wasn't that. Like,
Right.
I think the Saints. It was either I think the fourth down conversion, Drew Brees threw to Willie Snead, and that
Yep.
in turn set up the
Yep.
go-ahead field goal.
Yep.
And like they reviewed it for something, maybe it was a catch or whatever, and like
Yep.
they upheld it, and like they cut to Zimmer, and he's like, okay, defense, this is what we're gonna do. Like Xavier Rhodes is freaking out on the field, and Mike Zimmer goes up to him and goes, hey, I need you in the game. Like I need you in this.
Yeah.
Case Keenum throws a pick. He's right there going, hey man, it's okay. We need to win this game. We need to finish it off. It's just night and day to know how this story ended 5 years later.
Yeah, did you catch? There was a part where I think Aikman and Buck mentioned their talk with Zimmer before the game, and how he said, why he activated Sam Bradford, and he's like, if we're down by 2 touchdowns, then I got Bradford on the bench, and I'll put him in, despite Case Keenum going 11-3 or 11, and he was 11-2 or 11-1. As a starter that year. Despite that, Zimmerman was still like, no, I gotta have Bradford just in case. Keenum. This is the day that Keenum messes up, which happened to be the next week. But
yeah, that was my thought. Why didn't he do it in Philadelphia then?
Right
at halftime.
Right.
But
was this
I don't think it would have made a difference.
No. Was this the best call of Joe Buck's career?
What are some of the other good ones?
Well, he's got the Eli Manning, David Tyree one, but everyone rags on him for that because he's just like, Eli, catch, and that's about it. I'm sure he's had some baseball calls, but that's the thing. Like, you don't really remember any other ones because they weren't really significant. So to me, I would say that
they're not related to your team,
right?
Yeah. So,
but I mean, there's other calls though, like of other teams that we can go back, like, I don't know, anything by who's the not even basketball. Is he basketball? He's basketball and football. Who just screams anytime something
Gus
happens.
Johnson?
Yeah.
The law Gus, man. Every game he calls, it's a close game.
Everything is insane whenever he calls game. Yeah, I definitely like that one. I forgot I was doing a little more research today. I forgot that I found the Portuguese call of this moment as well, which is very good. And in the audio version of this podcast, I'll put that in there for people to listen to. It's pretty hilarious. And yeah, the PA one was good, but yeah, like you said, like Pete Bursich was just freaking out so much that it kind of just took a little steam out of it because everyone in the stadium was freaking out. But yeah, the Buck call is definitely the best play-by-play call of the game, maybe of his career as well. All right, so maybe some underrated impact player, whoever you want to select. But who we hear about Diggs, we hear about Keenum. Who do you think was an underrated impact player in this game?
Jerick McKinnon. How about him?
Oh, you think so?
Well, I would say the running game in general, because they scored the first 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
This game was ultimate Mike Zimmer football for the first 30, 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes.
Yep.
Because the Vikings jumped out to an early lead and they used the run. And they were mentioning that in 2017, they weren't an efficient running team, but they just ran the ball a lot. And that's what Pat Shurmur did. He just grinded it out, and they took deep shots to Diggs and Thielen, who were on fire that year. And everything just worked out because Case Keenum got him the ball. That first touchdown that Jerick McKinnon scores to put the Vikings on the board, the explosion that he had, you could see why the 49ers wanted to sign him for that zone scheme, because he could stop on a dime and just accelerate, just turn into a Ferrari basically in the open field. And then you had Latavius Murray, who was kind of grinding it out as well. I think without that running game, this game isn't as close, because I just think that, they chewed so much clock in the first half, and the Saints were so bad in the first half that once they finally got their footing, the Vikings couldn't stop them. Like, if the Saints had one more chance to get the ball, maybe with like 30 seconds left, they would have won the game. Like, it was just last team with the ball won the game.
Pretty much.
So chewing that clock in the first half shortened the game. It almost cost them the game, but I think it really set the tone early and helped Zimmer play his kind of football, even though it almost led to his demise. And it did the following week. But
yeah, I think I saw the Saints. I looked this up earlier, that the Saints had like 94 penalty yards in the first half. So like they just couldn't do anything right. And I feel like that was just a good chunk of the yards that the Vikings gained was on penalties in the first half, which is sometimes how it goes. But yeah, I would agree with you with the run game. I would put Latavius Murray in there, and you can tell by his numbers how grinded out it was. 'Cause he had 19 carries for 50 yards. That's like Leroy Horde kind of numbers. I'd also put Jarius Wright in there because he had some big catches. He only had 3 catches, but 2 went for first downs. He had that one like over the shoulder that was, I think it was reviewed, that led to
Mhm.
the Kai Forbath kick. Kai Forbath, you got to put him in there. I feel like
Yeah.
if not for the miracle play, or if not for the Saints their field goal, he would have been the hero of this game. Because he hit a 53-yarder. And then Kyle Rudolph, in a bad way though, because his bad block on Jordan there on the outside, Cam Jordan, it kind of led to that Keenum interception because he let the pressure get into his face, and then the Vikings were driving pretty good in the fourth quarter, and then he had an illegal block in the back, and that kind of just stalled everything, and then that led to block punt. Um, so, and I looked it up. I think Kyle Rudolph had like the second worst PFF grade from this game, which wasn't surprising to me at all. What would you say the turning point of this game was?
I think it was halftime.
You think so?
I think it was the missed field goal by Forbath, who made up for it with that 53-yarder because I don't know. After being at that Blair Walsh game, once he lined up for that 53-yarder, I went, oh my God, if he misses this. And the shock that it
It
went
was so
through,
loud in that stadium when he made it. Like I
yes.
could tell on the broadcast that everyone was like, "Oh my God, he made it!"
And as it was up in the air and people realized it was going to go through, I think it's just gradually. I mean, that is the loudest game I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Like I've been to pretty intense Vikings game.
Yeah.
The Christmas Eve game against the Green Bay Packers in 2004. I went to that game and that was pretty crazy. Like I said, the 2015 one, it was a little bit quieter because it was outdoors and I think everybody was really cold. But that 2017 game, everybody just believed in this team.
Yeah.
Like everybody, which that's our own fault. But
yeah.
I mean, everybody was just so behind this team and everything. And I actually, I get it right now, but I have the towel from that game.
Yeah.
And looking at it, like you could see like the sweat stains from
bring it
me.
home.
Like, yeah, it says bring it home. It's got little sweat stains on it. I should frame the damn thing, but
Should.
it just, yeah. I think, to answer your question, I think the turning point was halftime because they had that 17-0 lead, and they couldn't do anything wrong. They played so well in the first half. In that first quarter, Drew Brees was 1 for 6 for 3 yards with a pick. His passer rating was 0.0.
Yeah, he had like a 25 point whatever passer rating in the whole first half. He was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Mike Zimmer football in the first half. And then once the Saints, I mean, even in the first drive of the second half, they had a long drive. And I can't remember if it was a punt or a field goal, but I mean, Mike Zimmer did some things that kept New Orleans in the game too. He kicked a 20-yard field goal, which ultimate Mike Zimmer football. We talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 4th and goal on the 1. And he kicked a field goal. Like,
yeah.
Come on, man. I would say the block punt for me is when things turn, because I feel like the Vikings they just got the Forbath kick to go up 20-14. It feels like they kind of put a halt to the Saints and their momentum, kind of got some momentum back. And that was after the good drive. I mentioned Kyle Rudolph kind of screwed everything up with the illegal block in the back, but they were kind of moving the ball pretty well on that drive. But then Ryan Quigley went back there on their own 40-yard line, and it was blocked by Saints defensive lineman George Johnson and recovered by Saints linebacker and former Viking Gerald Hodges. And 27-year-old rookie Taysom Hill also had an impact on the punt there. That was his rookie season. So the Saints got the ball on the 40-yard line, and then they scored a go-ahead touchdown 4 plays later. So I just think like that was huge. That was just, if there was something that the Vikings did not need, it was that. And I feel like most of the scores, I feel like a lot of people, when they look back at this game or even just talk about it, they go like, oh, that's the game where like people figured out Zimmer's defense. And I'm like, you realize the Saints got the ball on short field on like 2 of their 3 touchdowns. There was one drive where they went like 80 yards, and that was it. The other two were like the Keenum interception was first play of that next drive. So they were right after the long drive, Keenum throws an interception, the defense is right back on the field, and they got to stop the Saints. So like this notion that everyone figured out Zimmer's defense, maybe next week, maybe in the Eagles game, that's true. But I
Yeah.
don't think it was. I don't think it was the Saints. I think it was more just the Saints getting short field, Drew Brees being the veteran that he is, taking advantage of that, and Sean Payton's a good play caller. You know, Michael Thomas, good receiver. He was on fire in the second half. Alvin Kamara, all those guys. So yeah, the block punt is a turning point for me. Some unanswerable questions that we can probably still not answer. So if Diggs catches the ball on the miracle catch and he goes out of bounds instead of scoring the touchdown, does Kai Forbath make a game-winning field goal, which where he caught it was around the 39 or whatever, or something like that, and it would have been around like a 51-yard field goal. Does Kai Forbath make the game-winning field goal?
History says no.
No.
It's a lot like the 2009 NFC Championship game when
Yep.
you think about it, because Brett Favre's driving. He throws the interception to Tracy Porter, and people are like, I mean, me included, I'm like, Longwell's got this. Like, it's a 56-yarder if he just runs a couple of yards. But Longwell's career long, I think, was like only like 52 yards.
Right.
And there was no guarantees. I mean, the only guarantee at that point was Diggs crossing the end zone. And it was a race against time. I'm sure if Diggs had seen like another safety behind him, if they had dropped Marcus Williams 10 yards like we were talking about, he's probably stepping out of bounds after another 10 yards. And he's going, all right, Kai, let's do this. I just don't know. An unanswerable question, right?
I don't know. The way he was kicking though, that game, like he already made a clutch kick, so I would have been I would have been a little more confident in him. And he struggled with extra points. Like that's what he really struggled with when he was the Vikings kicker. It wasn't really even field goals, because I think he was like 7 of 9 on kicks of like 50 yards away or whatever that year. Yeah, I don't know. So that's still going to be unanswerable. Did the Vikings score on the final drive if Kirk Cousins is the QB and not Case Keenum? You know, we couldn't go a whole podcast without talking about Kirk Cousins.
He's checking down. He is checking down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There is no way he makes that throw, because it's a low percentage throw. He's looking for a more wide open guy. I don't think Kirk. Now, do they win the Super Bowl if Kirk is the quarterback? I could argue yes.
You think he'd be better against the Eagles than Keenum would have, or than Keenum was
against the Eagles?
I don't know. The Eagles were like a team of destiny. They were on a mission.
Like the thing with the Vikings that year is they didn't really have any adversity. Like, Bradford got hurt week 1, right? But like their big like adversity win was beating
the Rams.
Chicago. Otherwise, no. Well, yeah, and the Rams they had some impressive wins. Don't get me wrong, but like the Rams, they blew them out by 17. Chicago, Sam Bradford looked like he needed a walker in case Keenum came in and finished the game.
They struggled to beat Kirk Cousins that year.
They took off from there. I mean, that was really the only sign of adversity. The Eagles lost Carson Wentz, who was playing at an MVP level at the time. They had a, kind of no-name group of guys. Like, I mean, how many players can you name on that Eagles team? I mean, I looked them up the other day. Like Ryan Matthews was their running back. Yeah, Chris Long, Nick Foles, Alshon Jeffrey, Jalen Mills, I believe, was on that team. Brandon Graham. Fletcher Cox. Okay, if you think about it, like you probably just debunked my point. But
we're football writers, so we kind of have to know this stuff.
They ran through a little bit more adversity than the Vikings did, and everything was like laid out in front of the Vikings. It was assumed that the Vikings could just walk to the Super Bowl with a big grin on their face and play it in their backyard. Like it was too damn obvious for them. And they did come back in that Saints game, but once they were on the road in a hostile environment against a good team, they crumbled. They did the same thing in Carolina against Cam Newton, like in the regular season.
Yep.
Yeah.
At first, though, in Philly, it looked good. First drive, 7-0. Then
Yeah.
nothing after that. Last question, last unanswerable question. Why did Mike Zimmer never really embrace Case Keenum as his quarterback? Why?
He
He
knew it
was
wasn't
good,
going to last,
but he
and it
feels like,
didn't.
looking back, he feels like the perfect quarterback for Mike Zimmer. Like, not expensive, just like plays with his pants on fire and wins. I don't
I
know.
think it was because he wasn't Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Teddy was the controllable quarterback that Mike Zimmer wanted. Like Case Keenum, they could tell him all day, hey, don't make this throw. And he'd be like, yeah, screw this. I'm making this throw. Like Sam Bradford, kind of the same way,
Yeah.
where he's very cerebral. He wasn't going to,
Sometimes.
like, he's very Kirk-like, I
Yeah.
think, where he was
He
going to
is.
take the open throws. Teddy, he had a little bit of off script, but I mean, he had this bond with Zimmer. And I don't think Keenum ever had that. I don't think Bradford ever had that. I guarantee you, out of the three quarterbacks between Bradford, Keenum, and
Teddy.
Zimmer wanted to keep Teddy overpaying Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah. For
And
sure.
I think, when you look back at that, what if they had signed Teddy to, I can't remember what he got from the Jets, but the Vikings doctor said his knee's not going to hold up.
Then he got a 1 or 2 year deal, but then he got traded to the Saints.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they signed that deal, then you draft Lamar Jackson at the end of the first round. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but that's the kind of thing you probably would have done in that situation.
I just like, I don't know. Like, his numbers were better than Teddy's, but clearly he just liked. I don't know. I could never understand it. Like, he's winning. He seems like everyone in the locker room loves him. Like, Diggs loved him. Thielen. It seemed like Thielen liked him. Like, everyone in the locker room liked him. I don't understand like why Zimmer was just so. Just seemed like he was just unwilling the whole year to be like, he's our guy.
Now, what if Teddy's knee doesn't explode?
Yeah.
And he's able to play in 2016. Diggs and Thielen emerge. Because remember, he was throwing like Greg Jennings Charles Johnson and Mike Wallace.
Who's the other guy? Who's the guy that got busted with weed? The flip
Homegrown
guy.
Jerome Simpson.
Yeah.
Homegrown Jerome.
He made so much money because he did a flip in the end zone.
I'll tell you my homegrown Jerome story after the show, but
okay.
I probably can't mention it on the show.
Can you turn this game into a multi-part docuseries?
The game? I don't think so.
Just make a series and the game is like the center point. Like, how like The Last Dance is about the final season and they have all the little stuff about it. I feel like you could do that kind of with this game.
I was thinking that you could do a docuseries about the 3 Viking Saints playoff games. You have the one in 2009, the NFC Championship, because Sean Payton was there at that point.
Yep.
And then, the Vikings, they lose that game. They bottom out the following year. They rebuild. And this was the next matchup. And then the rubber matchup was in New Orleans where, Mike Zimmer's kind of tenure was kind of on the line in that game. Some people thought so. The ownership was like, no, we love Zimmer. And then Kyle Rudolph pushed off and the Vikings won. I'm going to keep mentioning that.
They ran the same exact play in this game.
They did.
They ran the same exact play in this game. And the same player was covering him. It was
and
DJ
I was like,
Williams.
You could have pushed off there too, Kyle. That would have helped.
I think he did. And because I watched it a couple of times, I'm like, that's the same play.
Yep.
It was funny. It was really funny.
But you can do one on those 3, or maybe even just those 2. Because
I think you could you split into 4 parts, just do a quarter per episode, and then highlight different aspects of like the Vikings and even the Saints. Like, you can look at Case Keenum's journey because he was just like a journeyman quarterback before this. You mentioned the rivalry between the Vikings and Saints. You could do a whole episode on that. You could do something on the relationship between Mike Zimmer and Sean Payton because they're both Bill Parcells guys, come from the Cowboys.
Could do one on Diggs.
Yeah, and then you could do one where you look back at all the Vikings, heartbreaks in the playoffs, because that could be forever. So I mean, I would watch any Vikings documentary. I think technically there's only like one, and it's like that missing rings one.
Mhm.
That NFL Network makes or whatever, and you could, yeah, I guess you could call it the
That's
Randy
really
Moss
good
one.
too,
It is
actually.
really
Yeah.
good. It's
Yeah.
hard to watch, but it is good. So
Anytime you get to hear John Randall talk,
yeah,
like you
yeah,
should listen.
for sure. It's because he did the schedule this year. He was great. Um, just like there's a horse there, and he's like Colts, and punched in the face.
Just slaps it.
Was this game anyone's career highlight?
Stephon Diggs
You
and
think
Case
so?
Keenum.
You think it's Diggs because he has been an All Pro, but it's
Yes, but this
single
is the
game
play.
wise.
If you talk to a neutral fan
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you go, "What do you remember Stephon Diggs?" Oh, he had that catch in that playoff game. Like it's nothing with Buffalo and I was going to call them the Sabres. Hockey on the brain. The Bills
Bills. Yep.
haven't. I mean, they got to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
They had that Undertaker Shawn Michaels like battle in
Correct.
the AFC divisional game, which I think everybody still needs a cigarette after that game. You want to talk about rewatchables? Holy crap, that is yeah. But no, I mean, he will never have a catch unless it's to win a Super Bowl or something as big as that moment, because it was just so shocking, not only for Vikings fans, not only for Saints fans, but the entire league who had watched that game, watched the Vikings go up, blow the lead, and then win. I mean, name the walk-off winners in NFL history in regulation. And the fact that he chucked his freaking helmet afterwards and just went like this, like it is so badass. So, Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs. It's an easy answer.
Kai Forbath?
Sure.
Pat Shermer?
Nobody remembers the 52-yarder that Kai Forbath hit.
No.
Pat Shermer.
Pat Shermer? What about Mike Zimmer?
Who's the special teams quarter for the Music City Miracle?
Oh, I don't know.
I rest my case.
Yeah, that's true. What about Mike Zimmer?
Or I think the whole season was his.
Or is the 2019?
Highlight.
I feel like the 2019 game against the Saints might be a better example because everyone was counting him out. Yeah,
they won that game because of him, because they moved Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter to the inside, which they never did again. But yeah,
right now
I would say that,
and now they're talking about doing that all the time with their new defense, putting Danielle Hunter over like guards. Yeah, it's weird. It really worked that game, and then he's like, "Nah, we don't need to do that anymore." Underrated one is Andrew Sendejo. He had a really good diving interception. He registered the highest PFF grade in a single game his entire career in this game with a 90.7. So that's an underrated one. Just some random research and facts before we close this up was John Randall blew the Gallahorn. Ryan Quigley.
John Randall speaks, you listen.
Had his first punt result in the touchback of the whole season in this game. Dan Campbell was on the Saints coaching staff. Now, of course, with the Lions. It's the first playoff game to end with a touchdown as time expired in regulation. Obviously, there's been overtime ones, but this one happened in regulation. The play involving Keenum to Diggs was named the NFL Play of the Year at NFL Honors, and it was also the best moment at the ESPY Awards that year. Here's something that someone like Scott Van Pelt would like. The Vikings kneeled down on their extra point attempt after the Diggs touchdown, which means they won by 5 points and didn't cover the 5.5 point spread. So people are probably like, no, so many people lost money on just that decision alone. Diggs and Thielen had the highest PFF grades on the Vikings offense. Kyle Rudolph and Rashad Hill had the worst. Hill gave up 6 pressures and a sack. He was pretty bad. Andrew Sendejo and Linval Joseph had the highest PFF grades on the Vikings defense, while Anthony Barr and Terrence Newman had the worst. Yeah, that's all I got, man. I think it was just it was. You have any parting words, I guess?
Well, I got one for you.
Okay.
Thomas Morstead broke his ribs on his first punt of the game.
Yeah, and he was holding
And
them.
I remember watching, so I remember and I remembered that he had broke his ribs. I'm like, oh, that was the play. And he goes out for his second punt. They must have given him some feel good stuff after the 1st punt. So he went out looking like he was like, you know,
Hunchback in Notre
Mick
Dame.
Foley in a hardcore match or something, like holding onto his ribs, and he kicked me and and then he had to go on the field so they could
For the extra
take
point.
the knee.
Yeah.
And the best part, like the other cool thing about this game was after the game and what happened, because everybody heard about Morstead's injury, and I think Vikings fans donated a whole bunch of money to his charity.
Yep.
And then the pictures of Sean Payton doing the skull chant to mock everybody. And then like the cool thing was everybody is like, oh yeah, Sean Payton, what a you know what, and everything else. And he's just like, okay, yeah, you got me. He's like, let's didn't they like donate some couches or something because they
I don't know.
got him?
I know they donated to Morstead's
He was
charity,
super cool about it, which I didn't
yeah.
expect. He's like, yeah, you got me, whatever. Yeah.
I know they definitely donated to Morstead's charity. I definitely remember that. I think they did it. They might have done it in 2019 too, as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was fun. I like this. We're definitely we'll do more of these before the season starts. Go over some more maybe highlights. Maybe we might have to dive into a low light because there's just too many of those to not do that. But make sure to follow the Viking Age on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube to our channel and like this video. And if you want to, if you have any suggestions and you're watching this on YouTube, throw in the comments of, a game that you would like us to rewatch, and we can do that in the future. But until next time, which will be Thursday, Chris and I will talk to you later.